So I went to go see Walt on Friday, and he texted me his room number, and I go up to the hospital. I'm going through the halls, and I go to the room number, and it's a broom closet. So I'm like, I go to the nurse's station, and I'm like, hey, I'm looking for Walt Schroyer. And she's like, who? Like Walt Schroyer? So she has to look him up. She said, I think he's in room like 137, something like that. I'm like, okay, great. I think that was where he was one other time before. So I walk down, I'm looking, at the different rooms, and I go in and, room 137. So I walk in, it's empty. There's nothing there but his phone. I can see his phone there, but it's empty. So I'm like, I walk out to the nurse's station, there's another one right across the hall from his room. And I'm like, I'm looking for Walt Schroyer. She's like, Walt Schroyer? She's like, just shakes her head, like doesn't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, did something happen to this guy? Like, what's going on? So I'm like getting worried now. And so she's like, maybe the other nurse knows at the other desk. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, go to the other desk. I'm like, Walt Schroyer. And they're both looking at me like, don't know what you're talking about. And then finally this woman walks out from another room, like right behind them, and she's yelling at the nurse, like, get in here, you need to help me. And the guy's like, okay, well, this guy's looking for Walt Schroyer. And she's like, yeah, he's in a procedure right now. What do you need? I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? She's like, and then she looks at me and she's like, oh, but it's not that bad. It's just a minor one. Like, okay.
So is today's message the efficiency of our federal government?
Now you see what I work with all the time.
Yeah, so it was...
I probably wanted to put him in a closet, though.
It was an adventure, yeah. So that was Friday. Everybody enjoying the rain?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, Mandy's like, no.
Yes.
It's been raining all week, every day.
You should know.
Man. And it just continues to rain and rain and rain. So it's going to be...
Praise him in the storm.
Yes. So we can thank God for the rain because he brings rain to the good and the evil. So, all right. So we are finishing up Identity and Heritage. This is our last one, and we're gonna take a couple weeks off. I'm gonna be out of town for a couple weeks, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna start a new series. I think we're naming it I can't remember what we're naming it now. Anyways, but it's gonna be on the bros, I think is what we're gonna call it. Isn't that what we called it, Aaron? Something about the bros. Bros. Like bros. Like bros. Something to bros. No, not the apostles. So anyways, we're going to start a new one. So we're going to wrap this up. We've been talking about this identity heritage for about 10 weeks now, maybe 8. And we've learned a lot. Hopefully you've learned a lot from the characters. It stretched me to like go into like first person a little bit here and there. And so we're going to wrap up with Jacob. And I know some of you had questions about Jacob. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about to address some of those questions, but we're not going to cover his entire life because his entire life will spill over into the next series as we talk about the brothers. And so we're going to talk about a few things. So as I went through this, I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about with Jacob and a lot of deep dives we can take. And even like as I went through this, I'm like, there's 3 lessons, which I'm not a 3-point sermon pastor, that's just not me. But I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lesson, and this is a lesson, and this is a lesson. Like so many things we can talk about from Jacob's life. And so let's just dive in. Somebody read Genesis 25, 21 through 29, please. AJ, can you do me a favor? Can you turn these lights up just a tad, so I can see my Bible a little bit clearer? Genesis 25, verses 21 through, is that too bright?
That's a big tad.
Okay. You saw what rain is sunlight.
21 through 26, please. Genesis 25.
Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was unable to have children. And the Lord answered him, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it is so, why am I in this condition? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be separated from your body. And 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When her days leading to the delivery were at an end, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding on to Esau's heel. So he was named Jacob, and Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them.
So right off the bat, we see a few different things popping out. We see that Jacob's story doesn't begin at birth. Jacob's story begins in the womb, right? Jacob's story begins before he even comes out. There's something happening, and there's a relationship that's taking place. And as I was looking at this is one of those moments where, once again, a lot of times we look at the patriarchy within the Bible, but over and over and over, especially in the Torah, we see these moments where women have these encounters with God. And first it was with Hagar, had this conversation with God. Now we have Rebecca, who has this conversation with God, answering like, why am I struggling with this in my stomach? And the voice tells her, because the elder will serve the younger. In this state, she is wrestling with the things that are happening inside her, and she's giving an oracle. She's given this message that there will be 2 nations inside of you, and they will be split. And like, as I looked at that, like, when you're pregnant and emotional, right? You have different hormones going on. You have different emotions going on. Like, how do you process something like that? You have this pain, this struggle. You're trying to figure out, why am I struggling this way? You cry out, you pray to God, and you feel like, did God just speak to me? Did I hear that correctly? And now, if you wrestle with that for a little bit, then you question, what do I do with that? I mean, seriously, as a woman, what do you do with that message when you hear that there will be 2 entities inside of you that will split, and the elder will serve the younger, which in this culture, in this time frame, is unheard of. You never do that. The oldest always receives the birthright. He receives the inheritance. He receives all the blessings. You know, he is the man. And here you have been given this voice has told you the opposite. What do you do with that? So at birth, they come out, and this hairy monster comes out, this red thing that's got hair all of them comes out. And then as he's exiting the womb, you see a hand clasped onto his heel coming out. And they name him Yaakov. Can you say that? It's not Jacob, it's Yaakov. Yaakov is his name. And it comes from a Hebrew root, Ekev, which means heel. But it's interesting because Yaakov is also it means to grasp the heel. That's what it means. But that is also a Hebrew idiom. The idiom in all Hebrews, there's so many idioms within Hebrew. And the Hebrew idiom is about someone with deceptive behavior. That's the Hebrew idiom that Yaakov is named after. Which, as I looked at that, I was reminded of the idea that in the Hebrew culture, names have meaning. The name in which you are given is the character in which you will become. And that has been a belief in Hebrew culture even to this day. They name their children certain things to become this. So if you name your son or daughter pain in the butt, don't be surprised when they are a pain. You know, like one of my friends named his son this, right? Basically, named him son a pain. Pain in the side is what he named. I won't tell you his name because you'll know him, but that's what his name means, pain in the side. Yeah, no, it wasn't Walt. And I tried to tell him, like, I we should change your name. We should really change your name, because in all essence, a lot of times for a lot of people, he was a pain in the butt to a lot of people, and even to his dad. I'm like, but you named him. That was what you got. And so it is this reminder, lesson number one, like we learned this from Genesis chapter 1. Words have power. What you say and what comes out of your mouth can create worlds and it can destroy worlds. We get so flippant with the words that come out of our mouth sometimes. Even like how much of our culture is influenced by songs that we just sing and don't even think about the lyrics and the words that come out of our mouth. And we say these things over and over and over, not realizing that they're actually stamping our character and that they're reinforced inside of us as we say these words over and over and over. And we look at culture and society like, gosh, why does it seem to be so bad? Like, why do we have so many problems? Why do we have this problem or that problem? Could it be because the words that come out of our mouth are nothing but just constant garbage and putting people down or thinking, making us think of certain things that divide and separate people and create division and polarization because we say these words over and over and over. If I say that you are just a jerk and I say that over and over enough, at some point I will firmly believe that there's no changing you. And so why would I even hang out with you? Because you are this person. Because I've said it so many times. So lesson number one, what are the words that come out of your mouth? And what do you name your children?
Jacob also means what? You said deceiver.
It's grasps as a heel. It's deceptive behavior is the Hebrew idiom. Deceptive behavior.
So the heel grabber idea is like almost like he's trying to trip you. That'd be the idea if someone that's deceptive is trying to get over on you or trip you up.
Maybe he was trying to pull him back so he can be
Go
first.
Yeah.
I thought it was a heel, like healing somebody.
No, H-E-E-L, like the heel on your foot.
Well, I know a girl named Rose, and she's not a rose. I'm just saying.
Hey,
It works
but
both ways.
roses are thorny.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. No,
There you go.
You're right.
It makes sense, right? There you go. It's still true today.
Grasping on anything he can to like get his way. So it's like deceptive behavior is like
Correct. He will do what and we're gonna get to that point right next. The very next story is, and we talked about this with Esau, the soup story, the red story. You remember that? Red. You know, Esau comes in. He's famished from hunting. Maybe he hasn't eaten for a couple days, and he comes in and he says, "I want something to eat." And he goes to the tent where the tent dweller, the cook, is. Jacob is. He's in this tent. He's always in the tents. And it doesn't necessarily say why. The rabbis go into all these pontifications of like the stories of like why he does this, but there's nothing in the text that says any of this. We just know that maybe he has a close relationship with his mom. Maybe that's where he is all the time. But he goes into where Jacob is and says, "I need food." And what does Jacob say?
Some soup.
"I'll give you some soup for your birthright." Jacob always has his eye on something greater than the present moment. He's even willing to scheme to get it. I want what you have, and I'll trade you this. I'll give this to you. But that's what I want. Trading a bowl of stew, of red, for his brother's inheritance. Now, here's the thing. Esau sells it. Jacob buys it. This transaction is completely legal. They agreed upon it. But the spirit behind this transaction reveals the character of who Jacob is, or maybe who his name is. He will do one thing to get this. He sees what he wants, and he will do what it takes to get it, which then takes us to the next story of Jacob. This is the story of the deception. This is the story where Isaac recognizes, I need to bless my son before I die. And so he tells Esau what? What does he tell Esau? Go get me some of my favorite meat. Get some game. I want to eat. And here is where we see from the beginning in the womb, we see this special relationship that Rebekah has with her son Yaakov. And acting on the oracle, which here's the funny thing. The text never says that she told anybody this. She's held on to this feeling for this entire time, this hearing, whatever she experienced. She doesn't say that she ever told Isaac. It doesn't say that she ever told Jacob. She's told nobody. And here she is years later. She hears Isaac say, I have to bless my sons. And she engineers the deception. Not Jacob, but she partners with Jacob and says what? Go do these things. Notice, somebody read chapter 27, verses 18 through 27. Who's got me? Alex, you got me? Really loud. 27, 18 through 27.
So he went in to his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, Because the Lord your God granted me success. Then Isaac said to Jacob, Please come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him, and he said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother's Esau hands. So he blessed him. He said, Are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. Then he said, Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. So through 27. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come near and kiss me, my son. So he came near and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his garments and blessed him and said, See, the smell of my son is as the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed.
Here's how thorough Rebekah is. This is how thought out she was. How many senses do you have? 5 senses. The first sense is what? Sight, right? Isaac's blind, so he can't see. So the second sense is then what? Hearing. What does Isaac say? Who are you? Are you my son? Jacob says, yeah. Isaac's like, well, you don't really sound like my son. Come here. So what does he do next? Touches him. Okay, so Rebekah has this plan. I'm going to put these on you so that you feel like your brother. Okay? And then the next one is what? The taste, which, okay, he brings him his favorite game that, of course, Rebekah knows how to make. She makes it all the time. Then here's the kicker. This is how thorough that she really was. Like, she's been thinking about this for a long time, or she's just a deceptive person too. She knows that there's one other thing that could make Isaac recognize this is not who you are. And what was it? So what does she do? She puts Esau's clothes on Jacob, brings him in to give him a kiss. You know, I'm going to kiss you, but I'm also going to test you to see if this is who you are. If you've been with somebody for a long time, you know, your spouse, right, your children, you recognize they have a smell, they have a scent. Each one of us has a certain scent that we carry. He knows. And he's deceived. Rebekah isn't, innocent of all this. She's a part of all this deception. But as I looked further into this, there was another lesson that I saw. Somebody read 27 down a little bit further, verses 34 and 35. Somebody else. 34 and 35. Who's got your Bible? Come on. 34, 35. Chapter 27, verses 34 and 35. Same chapter.
As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing."
And now 41.
Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob."
Jacob receives the blessing. He gets what he's been aiming at. This is what he wants. His mother, maybe in an act of obedience, says, we have to make sure that this takes place. We want to make sure that you are the one that receives the blessing because this is what God told me was to happen. So I'm going to engineer this with you, and we're going to make this happen. And whether it was deception, obedience, or a mixture of the two, it did happen. Jacob receives the blessing, but at what cost? Newton's third law of motion in physics is what? Anybody know this? My mathematicians? Yes, right back there. What is it?
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
For every action, there is an equal or opposite reaction in physics. Now, outside of physics, we might say something different. We might say there's things like cause and effect. From a Hebraic perspective, the rabbis talked about this idea that you see in over the Torah, measure for measure, which is where Paul comes up with his own saying that says, what does he say? Oh, there it is. He says, whatever a man sows, he shall reap. Jacob received the blessing. He got what he was aiming for. But what happens to the family because of it? Maybe it was the right thing to do. Maybe this was supposed to take place. Maybe that was the action that needed to happen. But the other lesson is that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't always mean there will be sunshine and roses. Maybe this is why so many people are afraid to make decisions. Have you ever been in a situation where no matter what decision you make, you're going to piss this person off or destroy this person? Or this person won't talk to you anymore, and this person just is so angry with you. Has anybody been in those positions? I mean, that's called leadership, right? We have these decisions on a daily basis where if I make this decision, my son's going to be mad or my daughter's going to be mad. I mean, it doesn't matter what position or what your title is, you will be in these positions where you have to make extremely difficult decisions. And I think so many people, today's culture, just don't want to make the decisions, which is a decision in itself. This is why, or this is where courage is important. And I think so many people have this misunderstanding of what courage is. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having the ability to act or to make a decision even when you are afraid. You still act and you still do it. This decision had to be made. They made it, and there are consequences from it. And so what happens? Mom gets wind of Esau waiting to kill his brother, comes up with another plan. I'm so furious with my other son Esau's wives. We can't let this happen to Jacob. Get him out of here. So they send him on his way. I'm curious if any of you know this. At this point in the story, Jacob has to get moved out of his house to go to his relatives. Before this point, how many times has Jacob heard from God? None? Not one time. Anybody? None. Yes. Not one time. Here, Abraham, crazy Abraham, heard from God, and he lived his entire life moving and traveling based on where God was calling him. Isaac, only 2 times, has one revelation from God after the experience with crazy dad, that God comes to him and says, do not leave this land, stay in the land that you're going to circle in this area. And then he comes to him later in his life and he says, don't forget, I blessed and made a covenant with your dad, and that covenant goes to you now. Those were the 2 experiences that Isaac had. Up until this point, Jacob has never had an experience with God. He never met Abraham or Sarah. He just hears the stories of crazy grandpa. And his dad, there's some type of faith there, but nothing like Abraham was. And so here he is on his way out, but it's at this point that we have to remind ourselves that everything that he's done to deceive, to get the birthright, to get the blessing, has been done by himself. And his own choices, his own wits, his own deception, his own, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to aim and I want to make that happen. Which is fascinating, because now we recognize, despite being the chosen one, despite being the bearer of the covenant of promise to his mother, he's done all of this on his own so far. Jacob has received the blessing and the birthright through his own deceptions, and life until now has been characterized by his own self-reliance.
But she's the ringleader.
Yeah. Which, goes back to the tent thing, right? There's clearly some type of special relationship that maybe he learned part of this from her too.
Because you don't come out of the womb like that.
No.
That's learned behavior.
Yeah. I would say so. I would agree with that.
I think that Rebecca would be more favorable towards the second son after learning about Isaac and his older brother and like just the strife that they went through. Like she picked the second son. Like not the.
What do you mean?
Yeah, like all the problems Isaac had with Abraham for being. I mean, it was Sarah's first son, but all the problems his older brother. Not going well. She picked a second son. She had a heart for a second son that had problems with his dad not treating him right.
Like she has empathy more towards her second son because of what she watched her husband go through.
I mean, Isaac's older brother was a warrior, like the warrior among warriors, and that's kind of who Esau is.
Right. Which this isn't a part of it, but as I was looking at that, I was thinking of the idea of maybe this is why Isaac was drawn to Esau, because he reminded him of the brother who he had before. He looked up to his brother. He idolized his brother, and his brother was ripped away from him. And now he has a son who acts just like his brother. And so maybe we see, and some families have this, where parents have favorites. Some parents have this is my favorite kid. And then you might have another spouse who's like, well, this is my favorite kid. I mean, nobody would admit to that, right? But sometimes that does happen. We hear about those stories. And so here you have this, maybe Isaac and his favorite child is Esau, and Rebecca, her favorite child is Jacob. They spend time in the tents all the time. Yes, sir.
There's writing on the wall behind Rebecca. What is that?
It's Hebrew. I didn't look it up. It's just a picture. I didn't put it in there.
Hey, Matt.
It says, Kevin, pay attention to the message.
Yeah. Quit putting
So,
other things in it.
as a man, when you acquire things through deception, I mean, how do you think that makes? I don't know. I mean, it's not like you. Wouldn't you? As a man, feel like shallow, like not worthy because you got stuff by deceiving people rather than earning it.
You know you're deceitful.
You know?
Hang on. Maybe we're going to come back to that. because yes, I think we will come back to that.
So is this future karma?
So here we have a man who's been chosen by God. He has an oracle. Mom receives an oracle, this prophecy that this is who your son's going to be. And all of this takes place with someone who still doesn't even personally know God. There's no conversations with God, no prayer to God. He's just, this is what I want. I want the birthright. I want the blessing. But he has no relationship with God at this point. Nowhere in the text has he had any conversation or has there been any hint that he is devoted to God. He's only living on his own wits. Like, this is what I want. I'm going to get what I want. And then he goes away, and in Genesis 28, he has this experience in the wilderness. He puts his head on a stone as a pillow. Who's ever done that? I don't even know what that means. There's got to be something more. I didn't have time to look that up. And I've looked that up a few times, and I haven't found anything that I liked. But a stone for a pillow, and he has this dream. And what's the dream? Stairway to heaven, right? He dreams that there's long stairs and there's angels coming up and coming down and back and forth, and there's these things that are happening. And the angels, God speaks to him in this dream, affirming that he is the God of Isaac and Abraham, and that he is promising him the land in which he is lying on right now and all the land that he came from, and that his offspring would be as numerous as the sand in the sea, and that he will spread out in all directions, and God tells him that he will protect him. Now, this is interesting because to this point, what did Jacob do to earn any of this? What?
Listen to his mom.
Maybe.
Did deceitful things.
Seems pretty crappy.
Yeah. I mean, here we have Jacob, who's a fugitive. He's a deceiver. He's a man on the run because of the consequences of his actions, his own scheming. This is why he has to be kicked out and has to leave. Yet God shows up anyways, not to rebuke him, but to reaffirm the covenant that he made with Abraham, not with Jacob. Remember your crazy grandpa? I made a covenant with him, and because I made a covenant with him, I'm going to give you something that you don't deserve. What's that Hebrew word? Chesed. I'm going to give you not just grace, but I'm going to give you something that you didn't earn, you surely don't deserve, but because of who I am, I'm going to give this to you. Because of your grandfather and even your father, the promise that I made with them now descends. It falls upon you, Jacob. The least deserving in ethics or moral character. But God does it anyways. And this is interesting. Upon waking up, what does he say? 28:16. Who's got me? 28:16.
Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it."
This is awesome. This is mind-blowing to him. Why? In the ancient Near Eastern culture, the gods were located in their own territories. You worshiped a god, it was in this territory. You leave this territory and you enter the gods of another territory. This is how the entire ancient Near Eastern culture believed and lived, which still makes sense because if he's understanding the culture, where did his dad have this relationship with God? In a territory he never left. So he didn't get to experience Abraham going to Egypt and God meeting him there and leading him all of these places. He only knows Isaac, his father, in this territory where this God was supposedly with his father and mother. Now he leaves this land and he should experience another God, but he doesn't. His mind is blown because now he recognizes God is bigger than all of these territories, and he's in this place as well. And so here is the God of Abraham in this territory. And then what is his response? Verse 20 and 21. Read that.
Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God."
Man, what do we just see? Has Jacob changed? If you do this, then I'll do that. He negotiates, so quid pro quo. Like, if you do this, then I'll do this. He still doesn't get it. He's still deceiving. He's still being who he is. His name has not changed. He is still the deceiver. He has not yet been transformed. That comes later, which is what lesson number 3 hit me like as we were talking about it all week. Lesson number 3 is this: knowledge does not equal understanding. Knowledge does not equal understanding. When I first started learning about the Hebraic perspective, I would bury myself in study. And sometimes, I would spend 30 hours researching a topic for just to teach on Saturday. And I was consuming books and consuming knowledge and talking with other people who knew more than me. And one of my mentors, he shared an article with me of a guy that I'd been reading in Israel. He's like one of the most well-known archaeologists and Hebraic teaching Torah studies people. And he was being interviewed. And in the interview, the person was asking him like, "Hey, in this interview, you just said this, but in your previous book from a few years ago, you said this. Like, how do you account for that?" And the teacher looked squarely. He just said, "Because I was stupid back then." And what I've learned on this journey is that, maybe some of you have heard me say this, is that I've been studying this for 20 years, and every day I still feel like I'm a kindergartner. Every day I still feel like I'm learning something new. And it took me a while to actually get to that place, because when I first started looking into this, I was like, "Oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about," or your theology is terrible, and how could you be doing this as a church? I would see all the bad, and I would like to debate and argue and have these conversations with people, but I didn't understand what it all meant. I was filled with all of this knowledge, but I didn't have an understanding of what it all came to. And what I realized much later was that really what was happening is we fill ourselves with this knowledge, and it just then puffs our ego up because I have this knowledge, and then I have to tell you why you're wrong, or I have to save you because you don't know what you're doing, or I have to share this with you because you don't know where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing. That procedure's wrong. So I have to tell you why you're wrong. And really, all that's happening is my ego is just inflating and inflating and getting bigger. It's only, well, sometimes it takes years to have understanding. And the Jewish community understood this. They actually had time frames of like when you should get married, when you should teach. Like at 20 years old, you should be married at this point and starting a business at 20 years old. That's the time frame, no later than that. But then at 30 years old is the time that some people are allowed to start a ministry at 30. And I always wonder, why is it 30? Like, why not earlier? Because at what age do you start learning the Torah? Anybody?
0.
Oh, close. 5. Like the moment you can start reading, you start reading and learning the Torah. Everything that you learn about astrology to mathematics to reading to debate and discussions, it all comes from the Torah. So why would it, if you've been studying this for 25 years, why do you have to wait till 30 to start teaching it? Like that's a rule. Nobody can teach this until you're 30. And then at 40, it says at 40 years old, you attain understanding. I thought, wow, that's incredible. And then at 50 years old, you can counsel married couples. And what I learned later on is that, yeah, you might have knowledge. You might know the Torah. You might know the debates. but do you really understand what they mean? Do you understand the depth of what you are supposed to do with this truth? It's not just about spouting off to people because you know. It's about how you live this in your life. Which is why it goes back to the phrase I've said over and over and over. I might have all this knowledge and all this stuff, and I can tell you all the things that are true, but nothing actually changes until what? Until I change. Just because I have knowledge and I can tell you what's wrong with you and what you need to do doesn't matter. Is this knowledge that I have changing me? Jacob hadn't been changed yet. He was still deceiving. Even God, he's trying to pull something over on God. He still doesn't get it. And so for us, that third lesson, knowledge does not equal understanding. Lesson 1, words have power. What comes out of your mouth? You reap what you sow. And are these words that you're learning changing you as opposed to you trying to use them to change other people? Jacob is born clutching, lives a life of scheming, loses everything through his own cunning and choices, and is met in grace in a ditch in the wilderness. He's chosen, not because of who he is, but in spite of who he is. And this is the tension that we see between human striving and divine election. It's the heartbeat of this story. We are called to aim, but we are also called to listen. We are called to set our eyes forward and on things that are greater, but we're also to be guided by the Spirit. There are two sides of the same coin. One side is our own personal responsibility. This is what I need to do. The other side is, am I being directed by God? So on that, questions?
So is this future karma? A wife situation, how he gets played by this father-in-law, and
Well, it's his name still being played out, right? And then he meets it himself. He meets himself with his future wife's, husband or dad, father-in-law. They're both deceivers. So what happens when you have
that's
two
why
deceivers?
he just accepted it. He's like, all right, well, I did it.
Maybe, but we'll get there in a couple weeks. We'll get there.
That number 3, Matt, knowledge does not equal understanding. And I just like these phones, like they have so much information and misinformation, and people think they know. They not even understand it. It's just so crazy.
Right.
But you also read that 10 years ago, if I read a passage, I'm looking at it totally different back then.
Than today. That's what it should be. And that's why I said earlier, I feel like every day I'm in kindergarten because I can reread a passage and be like, oh my gosh, I never saw that.
But are both those things right?
What's that?
That you're understanding in the way you look at things.
Well, here's where I go with understanding. I
Is
think
one right and one wrong, or is it just different?
Yes and no. It could be both. There could be like the professor that I was talking about. There's been times where I'm like, yeah, I was stupid back then. I can look back on the past 20 years and I can look back at certain experiences or conversations or things that I've said, teachings that I've had, and I can look back to it now like, boy, I was dumb back then. And the same information, but I just understand it differently now. And I recognize like, oh, that's not what it was meant.
But you're stupid now and you were smarter before. I mean, really.
I think that's the.
But if this is a journey, if we are to be on a journey with God, then the journey is always about growth and expansion and learning and growing and getting bigger, right? hopefully we should never look back and say, well, I was smarter back then. Hopefully we should always look at our past and like learn from that and say, I'm growing. If I'm looking back and saying, well, I was smarter back then, we might need to reevaluate our journey.
I feel like that's Jacob's ladder. Like God's at the top of Jacob's ladder. That is an order that's supposed to be in our lives, and there's something that's always greater to set your aim on.
Correct.
So there's no getting it right. There's only looking to the next step to see how I can better myself.
It's just the aim.
Learn
Correct.
and grow.
Yes, sir. Truman.
I have a question. Is there a such thing as mastery? Does mastery and growth have to be mutually exclusive? Should you pursue mastery of something, or is it a figment of our imagination and just accept that we'll never master anything?
Well, what do they say? It takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I think mastery is something that we should pursue. Will we ever master something? I don't know. But I think we have a lot of people that know a little bit about a lot of things. And I think what I've learned, especially from like Jordan Peterson, is that if you spend more time mastering one thing, that mastery will actually expand to all other things. And so, especially if you, like so many other things, like if you think everything is spiritual, if I learn to master this one thing, I can see through, biology and neurology and quantum physics that, wait a second, it connects to all of these things. These are all connected here. Because I have mastered this one thing, I have wisdom to see in some of these other topics. Doesn't mean that I am wise in these topics, but I can see how they correlate, that maybe somebody who just has a lot of information doesn't know how they correlate or how they all come together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess I'm just thinking like I think medicine is the place to really think about it, right? There's a point where don't give me the knife, and then there's a point where give me the knife, because I have it mastered to the point where I can confidently say I will fix your spine, right?
Oh, spine. I don't want anybody with a knife in my spine, but
but at the same time, as a surgeon who said, no, I have it mastered, you can give me the knife. That doesn't necessarily mean that he can't keep learning. In fact, the way I think about it is you reach mastery to a place where you can actually execute a skill and have the ability to keep deepening.
yes. That's what mastery really should be, right? It's never like, oh, I've mastered it, now I'm done.
So I guess I know like within the church we have this notion of like, well, I'm always not there. And I don't know if there's a middle ground of there is a there and there is a keep going at the same time.
That's why they call it a practice.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
But there is a point where, for my case, give me your students. But there was a point where, no, don't give me your students. I'm at a place where give me your students. But I also understand that there's a lot more to go.
Sure, absolutely. And we should be. That should be our heartbeat. You can feel confident, like, give me the knife, I can do this. But in humility says, I can always learn more. It's the ego that says, oh, I know it all. I don't need to do anything else.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, anything else? Let me pray. Let's get us out of here. Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for Shabbat. We thank you for an opportunity to just sit down and understand Jacob a little bit more and how we can see so many of his struggles maybe in our own lives. May we continue to take this word, take the words that you've given us. May we put them on our heart. May we wrestle with them. May we seek to understand what you have before us, that we may become wise. We thank you for community. We thank you for friendship. We thank you for love. Guide us, Father. Speak to us as we continue to pursue you in this world. Amen.